Now, this channel is very well known for creating front-end dashboards in WordPress using a range of different tools with different kinds of functionality, and this video is no exception. We're going to use the free front-end admin plugin alongside Bricks Builder, and we're going to create 3 different sections. The ability to edit posts, add new posts, and also delete posts, but put them in the bin as opposed to deleting them completely. So let's go and see how we're going to set everything up and get started. First things first, you are going to need to download the front-end admin plugin. It is completely free, and once you've done that and installed it and activated it, we are good to go. So we're going to be working on my nice clean blog setup. As you can see, everything is laid out nice and simple. If we click on any of these posts, it'll take us in and we'll see the details about that post, all the kind of usual things you'd expect to see. You'll also notice at the top in the navigation, I have this dashboard button. If we click on this, that will take us to a currently blank page. So I've created a couple of pages, but done nothing more. So let's jump into the dashboard and see how things are set up. So for speed, I've already created the 3 key pages that we're going to need. The add new posts, the edit posts, and the manage posts, which is kind of like our index dashboard kind of thing. So with those pages created, the next thing we're going to need to do is create the loop for our manage posts. So let's go and edit this page. And as you can see inside here, I've created a section with a container, and that's it. There's nothing more going on. Now I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because I want to focus more on creating the front-end dashboard functionality than worrying about building out pages and so on. So the first thing we're going to do is create our loop, our card design, and those kinds of things. So we'll select our container. We're going to come over, add a block in. We're going to name this post card, and inside there we're going to add a couple of elements. First things first, let's go and add in our featured image. Then we're going to add a heading in. Then we're going to add some basic text in. And while we're at it, let's add a button as well. Okay, so that's the first thing done. Now let's just go and do a couple of good housekeeping things. First of all, let's just change this container over. I'm going to change this over to an unordered list and change our card over to a list item. Once we've done that, we now have our card in a more semantic setup. So we're also going to select our post card. I'm going to come over and give this a class. We'll call this post card. And while we're inside there with that class selected, let's come down to a row gap and add in a little bit of spacing. Now I'm using Core Framework as the framework, but you can use arbitrary values. You can use whatever tools you want. Doesn't matter. This isn't particularly important. So we'll add a little bit of space inside there. That's looking good. So the next thing you want to do now is set up our loop. So to do that, we'll make sure we've got our card selected. We're going to come over. We're going to enable the query loop. Once you've done that, we're going to open up our query options and simply set this to be posts. And we're going to say we want to set these up to be the newest first. So we'll say published date, and you can set it to ascending or descending. And you can set up the number of posts per page, pagination, all those kinds of good things. Up to you how you want to do this. Okay, so there's the first part done. You can see everything is now laid out. Let's go back to our container. Let's switch this over to display in grid. Add a little bit of space in between. And set this up to be 3 columns. So you can see everything is looking pretty sweet. You'll also notice now that we've got this bit of gap on the left-hand side. It's because we've set things up as an unordered list and a list item, so we just need to handle that. So the easiest way is to grab our container. We could apply a class to this, but I'm not worried about that. I'm going to come over into our styles. We're going to come into our layout. You can see there's our 40 pixels of padding. Let's zero that out, and it's gone. So now we just need to go and connect up the dynamic data. So let's start off with our image. Let's give this a class. So we'll use post card. We'll use BEM naming, so double underscore image. Hit enter. Same thing. Save that one. One more. And finally our button. This is going to be our edit button. Okay, so we've given those class names, so now we can set things up. So let's choose our image and our class, come to our content, and we're going to link our dynamic data. So we'll set that to be our featured image. Aspect ratio 1:1. Set this to be cover. I'm going to worry about object positioning and things like that. That doesn't really matter too much. Our heading. Again, select our class. Connect up our dynamic data. This is our post title. Basic text. Add our content inside there. We're going to use the post excerpt. And we'll set this to be 15 words. There we go. Finally, our button. We'll change this over to edit post, set our size to be small, and we'll come back and set our link up in a moment. Okay, so there's the basics. Now we can just quickly make sure everything looks okay. So let's just apply a little bit of quick style into this. There we go. We can see everything looks good. Obviously the buttons at the moment don't do anything, so we'll deal with that once we've created the form to handle the editing and so on. Now, if you're getting value from this video and you're enjoying it, why not hit that thumbs up button down below just to let YouTube know that you are enjoying it. But if you're not getting value from it, well, you can hit the thumbs down button twice, as that works pretty well too. But while you're down there, hit that subscribe button. Anyway, let's get back on with the video. So we finished with this page now. Let's just come back out of this and go back to our dashboard. And now we're going to come into our front end admin and come into our forms. And let's add a new form. So we're going to give this a name. I'm going to call this edit post. Then we can choose the type of form this is going to be. So let's expand this and you can see we've got posts, users and terms. This allows us to do a range of different things based upon default WordPress posts, users, their profile and so on, and also terms. For this though, we're going to keep this super simple and just say edit post form and click save changes. Now you can handle limiting visibility inside here. If we open this up, you can see you can choose to specify this is only available to logged in, logged out, or everybody, as for specific roles and what happens afterwards if they try to access it. So you can do it here, and if you're not using something like Bricks, then I would probably recommend you do. However, we're going to handle this inside Bricks itself and set some conditions up on the page. So don't worry too much about it, but the option's there if you're using Gutenberg or something that doesn't have this kind of control built in. So underneath now you can see we've got a typical kind of ACF setup. So if you're working with ACF, this is going to be very, very familiar. But you can see we've got post to edit, post title, post excerpt, and so on. So the post to edit is the name or the number of the post that you're going to edit. We don't really want to see that. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave all the values inside here, but we're going to set the display mode to be hidden. So this is going to pass over the relevant sort of ID for the post. But we just don't want to see that. We just want to see the end result, which is the post content loaded into our form. With that being said, you can see we can choose some options here, like the URL query. We're going to leave this to post ID, which is the default that you have when it comes to working with WordPress. And you can see we've got some other options. We are going to leave all those options as they are. We don't need to change anything inside there. So now underneath that, we've got our normal fields. There are some still missing, so we're going to need to address those in a moment. But let's see what's here. Your post title, your post excerpt, your post featured image, post status, and the submit button. Well, post status, again, is one of those fields that we don't want the user to be able to edit. If you are giving admin users access to this, then you may say, well, they can choose whether it's going to be published, whatever it's going to be. We want to have this so users can log in and access their content, but we don't want them to be able to choose what status it is. So what we can do is we can come over here and we can say what status we want this to be, whether it's going to be published, scheduled, draft, those kinds of things. If you're creating an edit option, you may want to allow them to edit it without review, at which point you could then say just inherit. But for this, we're going to say we want to put this back into pending. So if someone makes a change to this, it doesn't automatically get added to the site. It goes into pending and then waits for approval from an admin or higher user. So again, we can choose to set this to display mode and set it to be hidden. So that's another hidden field that we're not going to see that is super important. Okay, so the post title, if we open this up, everything in there looks pretty good. You don't need to change anything, but you can do if you want to. So for example, you may want to change the labels that are being used. If you're working with something that wasn't a post, for example, you can set up exactly what you want to display there. And also things like the no value message, default values, placeholder text, prepend and append, and so on. And even set up a character limit. You can also set this as a post slug, so if you want to give them control over that, I generally wouldn't recommend it, but you can do if you want to, and you can set this as a required field, set up instructions, and apply conditional logic should you want to. And conditional logic inside here works in fundamentally the same way as ACF. You can basically say, show this or hide it based upon the status of another field inside this particular edit page. We're going to leave that as it is. But again, if you want more information about any of these options, let me know in the comment section. If enough are interested, I'll create more content. Your post excerpt then, again, all the same kind of options inside here. We'll just close that down. Featured image, let's open this up. There's a few options inside here you may want to change. So you can choose a default image if no image is selected. You can choose how you want to return the actual information, whether it's an array, an image URL, or an image ID, and whether you want to show a preview of the image. And you can also apply a class if you want to adjust the styling, the sizing, and those kinds of things. And then you've got options then for image tags, where you want to actually upload the file. So do you want to just upload this to the media library? Do you want to upload it to the post, the specific post, or to the current user? And then you can set some minimum and maximum size values to make sure people don't upload tiny, tiny pictures or massive images. I'm not going to worry about those for this particular example because it's just a demo, but you may want to. So we can say 1 megabyte minimum, 2 megabytes maximum. You get the idea. What happens if no file is selected? What button text you want to use? As this is a editing page, let's say edit featured image, you can save this into a custom directory if you want to, again, which is pretty nice to see those kinds of options. And if you want to, you can hide this from the library. So in this example, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But if you were doing this to create or customize the user profiles, you may want to restrict the access to that user profile image to only have that hidden from the library and uploaded to the user's profile. So you have a little bit of security and privacy so other people can't imitate that user as easily inside the dashboard. And then is allowed file types. So again, this is where you're going to do things like comma separated versions. You can set the values you want inside there. And if you're using happy files like I am, you can also specify what folder they go into, which is quite nice. Again, where this is required, instructions, and so on. So once we finish with that and get everything set up, let's just minimize that. We've already handled the post status. Let's change the submit button. We'll just say update post. Then what do you want to happen after that button has been pressed? So you can set the form default, which is controlled by the settings. You can reload the current page, send it to a custom URL, and other things inside here. We're going to say reload the current page. Button type is submit. That's perfectly fine. And we're going to put a success message in. There we go. Again, conditional logic is an option inside here as well. Okay, so we've got the basics here. Let's save this. But we are missing a couple of fields. We don't have any taxonomies linked inside here. And this could be for just normal categories and or tags if you want to use both of those. We also don't have the main content listed inside here. So let's address those missing things right now. Let's add a new field in. We're going to come over to the field type and search for content. And you can see there's our post content. Select that from the list, give it a title, go to post content. Leave the edit mode, that's perfectly fine. The appearance, we want to use a WYSIWYG editor, so we've got some ability to be able to style the text and those kinds of things. We're going to set this up to be visual only. And for example, we may want to have this as a really basic setup, so not all the bells and whistles. And show media upload button, so they can upload files to the actual post itself. We'll say yes. And we'll leave everything else as it is there. And we'll just close this field. We can reposition this where it makes a bit more sense. So we'll pop that underneath our post title. And let's go and add another field in, which is going to be for our taxonomies. So let's change that to a search for taxonomy. Select it from the list. Call that categories. Again, field name is fine. Edit is fine. Then you've got your taxonomy. So you can choose what you want this to reference. So you can see you've got your tags and so on. And if you've created custom ones, they'll be listed here as well. We're going to leave that set to category. But if you wanted to allow tags as well, you just create another field like we just done, set that with a tag. Then we've got the option for, do we want to allow people to create new terms? Well, this is a front end version, so probably not, but we'll turn that off. Save terms and load terms is fine. Return value, we'll leave that as it is. And then you can choose how you want this to be displayed. Well, because people can select more than one value inside here, we'll say multi-select. Do you want to allow null? No. Any default terms? We'll leave that as it is. Required? No, we don't worry about that. Bidirectional, so if you've got this set up as a bidirectional relationship, you can set that up and configure it here as well. Okay, so let's just reposition this now. Let's move this up and we'll say this is underneath post content. So now let's go and take a look at the settings. Now we've created our fields and so on. Now there's some options here that are not relevant to what you may create. So for example, if you're working with posts, users and terms are irrelevant. So let's stick to the submission first of all. Save custom fields to. We've got this set to be post and that's perfectly fine. Save form submissions. So you can see you've got the submissions entry. So this will save them into the database and then let you see them inside the submissions setting. Any submission title, submission requirements, and so on. Again, if you want me to cover these kinds of functions, let me know in the comment section below. And then you can handle things like the total number of submissions and so on. Then you've got your actions tab. So redirect after submit. Reload the current page. After reload, what you want to do, edit content. So it allows people to edit the content if they want to. Apply a success message, which you can do right here, and any other messages that you want to apply. Then you've got your permissions and you can handle how information is stored. So you can see, give this rule an identifier. You can create additional rules inside here and you can choose where information is stored and so on. Again, it's beyond what I want to cover in this particular video. If you want this to open up in a modal window as opposed to go into a new page, you can do that. And then if you go to post, you can see you've got the options for edit post, new post, and duplicate post. Which post you want to do? From here, you can set a few things up. So current post, URL query, and so on. We're going to leave this as it is. Then you've got your post type. So you can see we can choose the different kind of post types inside here. And you can say hide if no post, and post status, pending review. Okay, so we're going to leave the user and the terms, and let's just hit save changes. All right, let's just remove that limit visibility and resave. Okay, so now we have our form created. What we need to do is copy this little bit of shortcode. And once we've done that, we're going to go back to our pages. So what we need to do now is go into our edit post page. So let's open this up, edit with bricks. Let's expand this out and select our container. And all we need to do is just add in a shortcode element, select it, and drop in the shortcode. And there we go. That's added that in now. So this is our edit post. So before we go any further, let's quickly apply some security to this. So let's come into our container. I'm going to come over to our conditions. And from here, we're going to add a really simple condition. So we'll add a new one in. We're going to say user login is equal to logged in, and user role is administrator. So you have to be logged in and an admin to be able to see this. Otherwise, you won't see it. Hit save. And now we've got our form created and our page created. Let's quickly test this out. You see, there's our edit post. Now, obviously, there's nothing inside here because it doesn't know what data to actually pass over. So let's deal with that next. Let's go back to our pages and come back into manage posts. Let's edit with bricks. And now we need to activate our button and set that up. So let's expand this out and choose our button. Choose our class, and we're going to set up our link. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up to be a custom URL. So from there, we're just going to put in the name of the page that we want this to go over to, which in our example is the edit post page. So let's just copy that to make sure we've got exactly what we need. I'm going to put a forward slash in, paste that in, and another forward slash. Now, I'm not putting the URL inside here because we are just having this go directly to that page regardless of the URL. So that's the reason why I do it this way. But now we need to pass over the unique ID for the post that we want to edit. To do that, we do a question mark, we do post underscore ID equals, and now we need some dynamic data referenced from any one of these posts inside our loop. So to do that, we come over to our little dynamic data. There's our post ID. And you can see that now puts the shortcode in for the post ID. So let's just hit save. And let's test this out. So let's choose this first one. We'll say edit post. And you can see there's the title of the post. There's our content with our image and everything inside there. There's the categories. There's no excerpt because we haven't added one. And then there's the featured image. So everything is set up inside here to be able to edit any of our posts. Let's just test it out. Once we've done that, we'll just simply come down and update our post. The form has been submitted successfully. So that now has come back in. You can see there's the change. So everything has been working as we expect. So that's our edit page all set up and working. Next thing we need to do is the add new post page. So again, let's just close this down. You can see we've created the add new post page. It's just waiting for our new form. So let's come back into front-end admin, into forms, add a new form, give this a name, choose the type. This example is going to be new post form. Hit save changes. And you can see again, this has pulled in the relevant information for our post. Again, you may want to add extra features inside here. And there's a couple of things we're going to need to do. So again, the post status, let's expand that out. Let's set that to be hidden. And let's set that to be draft for this example. That looks good. So we can close that down. Everything else we can see has been set up. So it's up to you if you want to go in and change anything inside here. But the one thing we're still missing is the actual taxonomy for our categories. So let's add that in. So we'll say add field, search for taxonomy, label, field name automatically created, display mode, edit. Everything else is fine on there. No to create terms, yes to save terms, yes to load terms. Set this over to be multi-select. Everything else looks good inside this. Let's close that field down, reposition it where it makes a little bit more sense. So we now have our basic form created. Let's save those changes, copy our code and come back into our pages. We'll edit our new post page. Let's again expand this out, select our container and add a shortcode element in. Select it and just pop in the shortcode. And there we go. There's our form all set up, ready to go. Again, obviously, you'd want to tweak this and customize it a little bit more to be specific to what you want. But once you kind of understand the process that we're covering in this video, you can tweak this to exactly your requirements as you need to. So again, let's just take a look at this on the front end. And as you can see, everything is set up. We can choose the various different categories from here. So for example, sunset and ocean and so on. Insert an excerpt, add some content in. If you want to add some media in, you can do that. You can see we can add images in. Use the normal old-fashioned tiny MCE editor. Add a select featured image. There we go. And once we're done, we'll hit submit. Form has been submitted successfully. So you can set this to go back to your index page. You can set it to a thank you page. You can set it to go wherever you want to, like we saw in the previous example. Now, if we go back to our homepage and test out, you can see that image and that post has not been added. The reason being is because we set it to go to be confirmed before it will actually be posted. If we come into our post, you can see there's our new post sample set to draft status. If we edit this, you can see there's all our content, our categories are set up. All the kinds of things you expect are all being handled inside here. So we want to set this to be published and update. Now, if we take a look on the front end of our site, you can see there's our new post added in. Click to take a look at it. You can see there's our featured image. Everything is all laid out the way you would expect it to. So we've added a new post in, handled the whole sort of confirmation beforehand. You get the idea how that works. So the final thing we need to do is create the delete option. Now, this works in a little bit of a different way to what we've seen when we create these forms and create pages and insert those into the relevant pages and so on. So like we did before, let's add a new form. Let's give this a name. We'll call it delete post, and we're going to choose the option to delete post. Hit save changes, and you can see that's created this delete post. If we expand it, you can see exactly what's going on inside there. One option as well, useful to see, is do you want to skip the trash? In other words, it gets deleted straight away. I would generally recommend that is not the case. And you've got other options as well. So how do you want to redirect after delete? Do you want to go back to a custom URL, reload? You kind of get the idea how this works. Once we've done that, nothing else we really need to do. So we'll save those changes. And what we're going to do now is we're going to copy that code like we've done before. Come back out of here to our forms. Make sure this is active, so we'll quick edit this and set it to be published. And now we're going to go back into our pages and open up our management page. And inside here, we're going to add a new shortcode in. So we're going to select this button. We're going to come over and we're going to add a shortcode. There's our shortcode. Let's drop in the shortcode for that new delete option. And you can see there's our delete button. Hit save changes. And let's take a look at this. Now, it's pretty ugly and we could do with some styling on that button itself, but let's not worry about that right now. Let's view this on the front end. There's our delete option. So the reason I say this operates in a different way is we're not going to go to another page. If you click delete, you get this. Are you sure you want to delete this? We'll say yes, and it's gone. But go back into our dashboard and you can see we've got one item in the bin, and that post we just deleted is no longer listed here. So we go into our bin. There's our new post sample, the one we just deleted. So this gives us that little bit of peace of mind that if something goes wrong, I think, oh, that was the wrong one. I didn't want to delete that one. Well, you can get it back by going into the bin and the post is going to be there for you. So it's pretty nifty and pretty simple and straightforward. So now you can see how you can take front-end admin and how you can use this alongside bricks to be able to create your own custom front-end dashboards. This is a relatively simple example, but it does show you the key things that you need to do. Create posts, edit posts, and delete posts, or move them to the bin to be safer. If you want me to cover in more detail how to create various different aspects of this expanded, maybe you take a look at the premium version of Front-End Admin, let me know in the comment section down below. Hopefully you found this interesting, and if you want to learn more about other methods of creating front-end dashboards, check out this video next. As always, all applicable links in the description. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.